Have you ever asked yourself, what is intuitive eating and how does it relate to me?
Today, we want to have a really candid conversation about intuitive eating from a faith based perspective.
Hi there, we're Ruth and Casey, and we are a mother daughter team with the Way Down Lifestyle. And we're glad you're here today for our candid conversation about intuitive eating. So, first of all, like in your mind or the way you think about this, what does it mean?
Intuitive eating to me, and this isn't probably the definition that other people would go by, but intuitive eating to me means, listening to what my body needs as fuel, not just a free for all.
And to me, it means, listening to my gut. If my gut tells me to eat fries, then I go and eat fries. If my gut tells me to eat carrots, I eat carrots. Intuitive eating is learning about your body and what your body is asking for.
So, what we actually have a definition here of intuitive eating that we want to read. And then, we were prepping for this video and we just thought,
Let's have a candid conversation because we're working through it ourselves.
yeah, exactly. So here's one of the definitions that we found for intuitive eating. Intuitive eaters choose foods based on hunger, fullness, and enjoyment instead of long-held food rules, restrictions, or other external factors. They trust their bodies to tell them what to eat, and exactly how much, or sorry, when to eat, what to eat, and exactly how much. It's a non-judgment approach that removes guilt and shame around eating. So sounds pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, except for you can eat whatever you want, how much you want, and you can overindulge.
Anytime. And that, I think the purpose of that is to break the diet culture that so many of us are ingrained in. And so I think that the reason for intuitive eating is really wonderful because, a lot of what we teach and what we practice is like ditching the diet culture that's about deprivation, that's about restriction, that's about all these horrible things where you hate yourself. So then you're deciding, that you should never eat bread again or never eat chocolate again or only eat vegetables again because you hate the way that you look. And that's horrible.
Yeah, it's a very bad starting point for wanting to lose weight. And when we're always depriving our bodies, we get into this victim mentality, which, we're in the pity pot mode then, and that's not living out the way God wants us to live. Coming from that victim mentality is always like, oh, poor me. Oh, I can't have anything. That's not good. So, what then do we do to live out, eating intuitively God's way?
Well, I think one of the big aims with intuitive eating is to break, like we talked about, the bonds that food has, the control that food has over so many of us. And I think that's really important, and especially as believers, because when we are like in chains to food, then essentially food has become an idol in our lives, and that's not okay. And so I think, as I think about intuitive eating and diet culture, they're like on total opposite ends of the spectrum. And I often like to think about how pendulums swing back and forth from one side to the next, right? And for a long time, we were in the diet culture, pendulum swing, and a lot of people are still there. And then now there's this movement of intuitive eating where the pendulum is trying to swing so far the other way, but the extremes on either side are not good. What we want, and I think especially as believers, is moderation and balance. And I think both of those things are missing on both extremes of that pendulum. So I think as believers, we can take some good things from diet culture, we can take some good things from intuitive eating culture, and then bring them back to balance to, live how God is asking us to live. And we often talk about treating our bodies like a temple, not a trash can, and neither extreme is doing that. So we have to bring it back more to the center, not to the outlying extremes.
I agree. And breaking the chains of having food control us is really, really important. I think one of the things about, intuitive eating is that because you can eat whatever you want and as much as you want, whenever you want, you're like going, like you said, on the extremes. So once you go through the drive-through and you have a burger and fries, that it triggers something in your brain and you want more of that because we know that those type of foods with all the chemicals and the nasty ingredients inside of them, they are causing our cravings. So when I think about intuitive eating, I think, well, we have to be really aware of what we're still intuitively eating, because if we just continually go for the processed crap, we're just going to want more and more of the unhealthy things. That's what our body and our minds are going to tell us. Yes, we want to get rid of the diet culture and the deprivation, but if we're not thinking about what's healthy and, like you said, treating our body like a temple, we're going to be off the rails and eat all that crap.
And I think that just leads into another one of the points about intuitive eating, where you're supposed to just like forget about your weight, right? You're supposed to not worry about whether you gain weight when you start intuitive eating.
Because a lot of people do gain weight with intuitive eating.
And, you know, the whole body acceptance, body positivity movement is kind of all saturated in there as well. And I think, again, the body positivity movement has some really good things, and the body acceptance thing has some really good things, because we weren't all made to be size zero.
And we don't want to all be size zero.
No, and that's not healthy. Exactly. And so, you know, the body acceptance movement has some really good things to it, where we want to learn to love who God created us to be. But again, the extremes on either side are not healthy. The body acceptance, where we begin to convince ourselves that obesity is okay, because it's not. According to the Bible, that's not okay, because what that is telling us is that we are indulging in gluttonous behavior. And the Bible talks about how gluttony is a sin. And
and we often talk about this verse, you know, where it says it's okay to eat some honey, but don't eat too much of it, because one version even says you will vomit. Well, we don't want to, we don't want to be sick, and we don't want to overindulge.
No,
because those do not align with scripture, where moderation and self-control come into how we should be viewing our food intake.
Yeah, exactly. So there's just a lot here. This whole intuitive eating conversation is kind of complicated, and especially as believers, when we have the Bible that, you know, is our blueprint for best living. And, you know, as we were kind of preparing for this video, another thing that we talked about was the whole concept of freedom with food, which is ultimately what we want, because we don't want food to have control or power over us.
And we don't want to be obsessing over food, because that is control.
But what does freedom even mean? What does freedom with food mean? And, you know, as we were talking about that and thinking about that, like, freedom exists. And especially think about this as believers, we are free in Christ. Okay. But we have the Bible, which is like our blueprint for best living. It's like a set of guidelines for us. So there is freedom within boundaries.
That's right.
Right. The free for all lifestyle, think about it from your faith perspective, not from eating. That's not freedom.
And that's not self-control in any area of our lives, whether it's with finances or whether it's with food. You know, we have freedom when we're in the boundaries.
Right. Because we know like where we should be, right? And so we can find freedom within those boundaries. And that doesn't mean a whole bunch of food rules where like you're never going to eat a banana again, or you're never, like, that's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is like bringing it back to what the Bible talks about, where it talks about moderation, like that verse. I think it's Proverbs 25 verse 6, if I'm not mistaken, where it says, do you like honey? Don't eat too much or it will make you sick. It doesn't say don't eat it. It doesn't say never have it again. It says don't eat too much. Okay. And so we have to bring it back to balance. We have to like come back to moderation and control.
Moderation is key, and portion control, because that's what the Bible teaches. So if your intuitive eating goes with these biblical principles, I think it's fabulous.
Exactly. And again, back to the body acceptance thing, you know, what we're saying in this video, I just want to acknowledge too, nothing is said from judgment or like, you know, we're not trying to be judgy here. We're trying to work through what all of these things mean for us.
Yeah. And for our business
from a faith perspective, because you know what, it's like the pendulum thing again, right? We've got to learn how to like live within these crazy pendulum swings and look to the Bible as our guide, because it is
our blueprint
for living. So what we do really like to do, I think actually, before we get to this next thing that we want to share with you, we've got our 5-step decision-making guide that we want to share with you that we use for, should I eat that? Should I eat that? Because we all ask ourselves that, right? And even with intuitive eating, it's like, should I eat that?
I know. And what is my gut telling me to eat? And what is my body wanting right now?
Yeah. But before we get to that, those 5 steps, we first would like to ask you to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell notification so that you get notified of upcoming videos. And we would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section on intuitive eating and what it means to you as a believer or from your faith perspective.
Or if you've done it, let us know how you did.
Exactly. And how it worked for you. So with that said, we want to talk for a minute about our 5-step decision-making guide, which we've called, Should I Eat That?
So our first question is, why am I eating this? Now, I'm sure that's a question with intuitive eating. Like, what am I hungry for? It's kind of the same thing. Should I eat this, or why am I eating this? But it's a good question. Why am I eating this?
Yeah. Is it to fuel my body? Is it because I'm choosing to indulge in something? Is it because I'm eating my emotions?
Am I hungry?
Yeah, exactly. What's the reason? Once you've answered that question, the next question is, am I choosing this or am I cheating? And this is kind of our version of like intuitive eating, right? We don't believe in cheating. Okay. We believe that we have full control over the choices that we make for what we choose to put into our bodies.
And when we're thinking that we're cheating, it has this very bad connotation that goes through our minds. And with intuitive eating, that is trying to, they're trying to break the whole diet cycle. So we are breaking that diet cycle by asking ourselves that question. Am I choosing? Because I get to choose, or am I cheating? No, we're stopping with that. We're not cheating anymore. We are aware and we're choosing what we put into this temple.
And we just want to add to that, or I just want to add to that. Cheating is something that we try and hide. We try to hold it in the dark. We're ashamed about it. We're embarrassed about it. It has that whole connotation to it. And, we always say what we hold in the dark holds a lot of power over us. So when we bring it into the light, when we choose and take ownership, we take the power back right there. That right there will take the power back for you right there. If you change even just the language about what you're doing.
And that changes our whole relationship with food, which is food freedom.
Exactly. So the third step in our decision-making guide is to ask yourself, does this decision align with my goals? And if you're here watching, probably one of your goals is to lose a bit of weight, right? To get healthy, not to deprive yourself, not to be a size 0, to lose some weight so that you can live in a healthy body and so that you can honor God with the body that He gave you. And so does eating this align with your goals? You have to ask yourself that.
Yeah, because that will change your decision about whether you're going to choose to eat that.
And I think with that one too, it's about, again, that balance of, sometimes you are going to have the cake or the chips sometimes, but it's about that balance, right? It's about the balance of, does it align with my goal, and creating a lifestyle for yourself that is sustainable, that you love, where you do have the freedom to choose, but within those bounds, right?
That's right. And so the last one is...
this is 4.
Oh, we're on 4.
Yeah.
So I was on 5 already. Okay, so number 4 is all about portion control, because, we don't want to overfuel our body or underfuel our body. We believe in eating the amount that is going to give us the energy that our body needs to sustain us. That doesn't mean overfilling it, because the Bible is very clear in the fact that overeating is not good for us. So let's portion control. And that might look different for you than it does for me, but we need to make sure that for our body that we are choosing the right amount.
Well said. So
number 5.
Exactly. If you still by this point in the decision-making guide decided to proceed with eating that being whatever it is you're looking at, the 5th step, the last step, is to actually enjoy it.
And you might think, well, that's not even a step. Well, actually, yes, it is, because if you're in the diet cycle where you're going to finally have a piece of bread, but your diet told you you're not allowed to eat it,
and you're cheating,
and you haven't eaten it for 6 months, you might not really enjoy it. You might go, oh, I shouldn't be eating this. Oh, I feel terrible eating this. No, if you're choosing to eat the bread or the chocolate or the dessert or the fruit or the salad, then enjoy it and savor every bite.
And we often like to say with that, if the fifth step, if that enjoyment piece is not there for you, then you need to go back and revisit the other steps, because chances are you need to dig a little bit deeper in those other steps to, you know, get to a point where you can actually enjoy what you're eating. And I think that's where, you know, that's our version of intuitive eating, because it's about portion control. It's about actually enjoying the things that we eat, but making sure that we're honoring God with the decisions that we make. And I think we have like a bonus step. It's not on the 5 steps, but it's about inviting God into the journey, which is integrated through the whole thing, because the goal is to honor God with our bodies.
And that's why we say intuitive eating God's way, because we have the blueprint for living.
Exactly. So we have actually put together the 5-step decision-making guide into a downloadable PDF for you, because
it's very helpful.
And we know that, you know, as women who are trying to get healthier, that are trying to lose weight, the decisions come into effect all day, every day, because we're like, food is everywhere.
And we have to eat to fuel our bodies, because we need the energy to do the things that God has asked us to do. So we do need to make sure we are fueling our temple. And we have to do that. Like, we can't just do it once a day, because that isn't enough fuel. So we have to be continually thinking about, should I eat that?
Exactly. So we've created it as a downloadable PDF for you. So go to shouldiEatThat.com and you can enter your email and your name and get the free download from us. You know what? That's what I'm using right now to lose the last 20 pounds of my pregnancy weight. And you know what? It's working, because it's really
working.
Like a faith-based intuitive eating guide, essentially, where we're looking at that pendulum swing and we're going, you know what, if it's here, we got to bring it back to balance, because it's all about living a happy, healthy life full of purpose with balance.
That's right. And when you do that, you're going to realize that you do have freedom with food. It's going to change your whole relationship with food. So keep asking yourself, should I eat that?
And until next time, treat your body like a temple, not a trash can.